there, hey you.
Hello,
Who are you?
I'm Ox.
Ox. Do you smell that?
I smell trees.
No. It's bigger than that. It's you!
What's me?
Why do you smell like that? It's like everything. Where did you come from? Do you live around here? I just got here. Finally live here. I just don't understand. We have to go see Mom and Dad. They'll know what this is. They know everything.
What do you smell?
It's like pine cones and candy canes and epic and awesome.
Hi everybody, I'm Joe.
And I'm Mary.
And we're Book Buds. We are on a TJ Klune kick.
We are.
So we had to read this book, Wolfsong, but I couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, Joe texted me. He's like, my library does not have this book. And we're trying to not buy because Joe's got a lot of books we're trying to like pare down.
Yeah.
And he's like, how am I going to read this, Mary? So I checked my library and we had it on Kindle. And I'm like, well, I can read it. Joe's like anti-Kindle. So I went into the library and I said, hey, there's this great author. And I think libraries are going to have more and more of his books very soon. But you guys don't have this one in the entire county. Would you buy it? And they said yes.
That's amazing.
Which is really awesome. So this isn't even in circulation yet at my library.
Right.
They just got it, handed it over, shared it with my bud. Super excited that they did that for us.
We got like VIP treatment.
Uh-huh.
Very cool.
Yes, very grateful. So we're gonna first talk about the book in a non-spoiler way, but then we'll get into some spoilers afterwards and we'll let you know when that's gonna happen.
Yeah. So you read this book first. So what did you think of it?
I loved it, and I was like, Joe, read it now, Joe.
Yeah.
Again, TJ Klune, he's so good at emotionally gripping me, and he makes me laugh out loud. Both, again, happened in this book.
Yes.
But this one, it was just so very emotional. The relationship between these two guys, I was just like in it, watching it grow. It starts very early in their life, and it takes them maybe to like, I don't know, 10 years later, I'd say.
Yeah.
So it's quite the progression. And I was definitely hooked from the very beginning.
Yeah, and it's very different because you said it's a relationship between two guys, but it starts off because there's an age gap between the two.
Yeah, which
like,
was a little awkward because I'm like...
Yeah, because he's like 10, right? Or
he's 11. And you kind of know that you want them to be together later, but you're like, now's not the time. So that was a little awkward, but it was okay.
Yeah. So it's about werewolves, okay?
Yes.
It's about wolves. And this young wolf... like finds this dude in the forest one day, as you can see from our scene. His name is Ox, and just completely just like attaches himself to him.
It's like he smells good.
He's like imprints on him.
I've never smelled that before. I need that. Yeah,
and like from that moment on, he was his. Like he chose him, and like they were destined to be together.
So now this isn't a story like, you know, your typical Twilight kind of vampire werewolf thing. Yes, there's werewolves in this, but it doesn't feel cheesy in any way at all, right?
No.
It's not like the main focus of the book. I mean, it is, but like there's so much about the relationships and the attachments and just like the life development, the hardships that each of them have had that play like a really big role aside from the fact that, yes, there's werewolves in the book, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so cute little Joe is like just so attached to Ox from the moment that he meets him. And I think we can say like Joe gives him something of importance that kind of like bonds him with Ox. Ox doesn't really understand it until later on in the book. And Ox doesn't know anything about werewolves at that time. He's like totally clueless, right? And so Ox is also, he's got a little bit of, I don't know if he's ADHD. Did they say that in the book?
Ox?
Yeah. In the beginning of the book, like I experienced him as in some way developmentally different from other people because he didn't have a lot of verbal expression. He was kind of like just a basic dude. And
yes, and his father always used to say that he was dumb as an ox.
Yes.
And like his father abandoned him, and on his way out, like the last thing he said to him was like, "You're dumb, and people are gonna give you shit."
Yeah.
All your life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a good send-off.
Right. He totally set him up for feeling like my life's gonna be really hard.
And one of the things that he said to him, and I love how TJ Klune just takes an idea and just he goes back to it like so often. His father said to him, you know, if you cry, you're not a man. And we all know that's not true, right? So Ox, throughout his development, would cry, and he would say, "Oh, I guess I'm not a man yet.
Right.
I guess I'm not a man yet," or like, "I guess we're not men because we started crying." And it's like up until his adulthood, and I'm like, "Oh, this is such a like just to hit that home."
Yes.
That that makes no sense, and like
Right.
you're a human and you feel things.
And each time that he was crying and he's saying, "I guess I'm not a man," I'm like, wow, but you're feeling such intense things. You're going through such huge, big deals. Like, yeah, you're a man. You're taking it and getting through all this stuff.
Mhm.
You know, it's okay to cry. You're absolutely a man, you know, but
Mhm.
he didn't see it. He didn't understand it because of those messages that he got from his dad that were really, you know, they made a big impact on him when he was really young.
Yeah, yeah, that was powerful.
Yeah. So what more can we say that's non-spoilery that's important about the story?
Non-spoilery.
Yeah. There's like, let's see about the werewolf. So like in the beginning, you're not gonna know that there's werewolves present, and Ox is clueless. But then as the story progresses, there's definite like, you know, it explodes, and you know a lot about the werewolf culture and their backstory, and a lot of things happen that like grow that werewolf community in ways that you would never imagine. So in any other book that you've ever read about werewolves, you've never read this, right?
Absolutely.
I don't want to say what it is, but you've never read this. And the
No.
way that this werewolf family grows is just epic and awesome, you know?
Get it?
Right? It's really, truly amazing. The, like, it grows, and the love and acceptance that's there in this werewolf pack is beautiful. So really an awesome story, superbly written. We highly recommend it. And now we're going to get into spoilers.
All right.
So if you don't want them, skip ahead to the bloopers.
So the villain was
Yeah.
Richard, someone or other, Richard Collins.
Not nice, man.
And he was like this wolf guy who like went around trying to steal everybody's alpha and, you know,
Mhm.
take over and do all this and that. So he kidnapped Joe from a young age
Yeah, and we don't see him early on, but we hear the
No.
story that Joe had been kidnapped.
for like days or
Yep.
weeks, and he like tortured him and used him as bait for his parents and broke
Mhm.
his fingers and just like really like terrorized him.
Yeah, and so Joe came back when he was rescued. He didn't talk at all for, was it years?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
didn't talk at
traumatized, yeah.
all until
Until
that day.
in the forest.
Right there in the forest when he sees Ox. He's like, hey! That was his first words
Yeah.
in years. And they came because of Ox, which was really
Right.
cool.
And then he brings Ox home, and he's talking, and his family's just like, what is going on? And they realize the significance
Yeah,
of Ox
right away.
and how special he is.
Right, and you as a reader, you don't know all that significance just
No.
yet, but the family, their smile, their joy at like Ox being brought into the home, you kind of get
Yeah.
a sense of it. You're like, they're really happy about this
Yeah.
situation right now.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but there's something really special here.
Yes.
Yeah,
Accepting, welcoming.
yeah,
That was great. And then poor Ox, what he deals with, like
yeah.
later on in the book, how his poor mother,
Gets killed.
this villain resurfaces when we thought everything was in the clear, and
Yeah,
it didn't
like-
seem to be like a tragedy coming.
You're headed towards like happily ever after, you know, for them, and then all of a sudden, no, his mom's murdered. Everything changes, and like they're stripped away from each other. It was
Yeah.
really sad, and she
Yeah.
was like killed right in front of him.
And she was so brave too.
She was. She really was. But he kept seeing it. You know, he couldn't go back in that house and
Yeah.
without seeing the murder happen again and again. It was like there was so much trauma for each of them in the book.
Her blood was like soaked into the floorboards, and that was like a big thing. And
Hmm.
so then, you know, at that same, like, we'll call it a battle, but it wasn't really a battle. Like when the villain came back, he killed Joe's father as well, who was the alpha. So
Hmm.
he took him from him.
Hmm.
So what does Joe decide to do? So Joe became the alpha, and then he decides to take half of the pack and go and hunt this guy down.
And so he leaves, like right in the middle of the book. You're feeling like, oh, we're headed towards something great, and then all of a sudden Joe's leaving. There's tragedy, and I'm wondering because I was on a Zoom presentation with TJ Klune from one of the local libraries, and he was talking about Cerulean Sea, but he mentioned that there was another book that he had writer's block in, and he's like, it's not something that happens often, but it happened when he was writing this book. And I was like, oh my God, I really wonder if the block hit right when things were getting good. And then he was thinking, well, now where do I take it? You know, because he had to put it down and walk away from it. And that was like a major transition, you know. It was, I wouldn't have thought while reading it, like, oh, he had writer's block and this is what happened, you
Yeah,
know. But
yeah.
hearing it afterwards, I was like, where would I place that? And I'm like, it's probably there because it was such a major transition. But it allowed the book to kind of like go on a new roller coaster, you know, like you were progressing and going, and then all of a sudden like a drop and then another spin, you know what I mean? So it gave it new momentum.
That's so interesting. This is the only book that he experienced that with.
Yeah.
Writer's block.
Yeah.
Huh.
He's an amazing writer. He like cranks these books out so fast.
How long does it take him to write them? 3 months?
3 to 4 months is what he said.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, there's people that labor over books for years, you know?
Yeah.
Really awesome. But so anyway, so all this happens. The dad dies, Joe goes off, and then you're on like this whole new journey. And my favorite part of this new journey was that Ox was becoming an alpha on his own.
How cool is that?
He didn't see it, he didn't know it, but like it was happening.
And he's human.
Totally.
This doesn't happen.
So like, how could a human be an alpha of a wolf pack, right?
Yeah.
And it's who he is. And like, I think Joe's parents kind of sensed it when they met him.
Yeah.
They knew something was really special about him, and they were open to differences. Other wolf packs are not open to this, right? But they'll hear like once in a blue moon, there was a pack way back in the day that had a human alpha, but I don't really believe it, you know, those crazy things. And so here, Joe's pack, his family, is not like that. They're open, they're accepting, and, you know, he's a human who cares. We're going to embrace him. And if he comes into that alpha role, we're here for it.
So you mentioned that Joe's parents kind of knew that he was like alpha material, but do you remember when Joe's father's being killed by that guy?
Yeah.
Like right before he and Ox were having a conversation, and it almost sounded to me like Thomas was saying, okay, you're going to be the new alpha.
Yeah.
Didn't he say that?
But he did say it when he on his deathbed.
Yeah.
He was like bleeding out, dying.
Yeah.
And he's like, Ox, I need you to be the alpha.
And I was like, what?
I thought he was like, I want to change you right now to be a werewolf, and I need you to be the alpha. That's how I interpreted it then.
Mm-hmm.
But then as the story progressed, he didn't
This
need to be.
foreshadowing.
Yeah.
That was good.
Really good. TJ Klune, I mean, you're amazing, man.
He really is. Oh my God.
Wow. What other epic and awesome things do you want to comment on?
Well, I just like that he, Ox, you know, in the absence of Joe and the others, he brought in some humans, like his friends, the guys that he worked with in the garage, into the pack, and like they became part of the pack, even though they're human. And Jesse, his like ex, I guess, girlfriend or whatever.
Briefly, yeah.
Yeah, just like really cool. So there's like a mix of humans and wolves and
other wolves from other packs kind of lingered, like they came in a weird way, and they're joining this like extended pack thing.
What'd you think of Robbie?
He was all unsure of himself as he was joining, because Robbie came as kind of like a spy to report back to other packs about how this pack was managing, and they knew that, but he was like an outsider. But as he saw what was happening in the pack, he was like, I kind of belong here. He never really belonged in any pack. He hadn't fully bonded in any of them. And so he was feeling like, I could belong here. And I could belong here because of Ox, this human. I want him to be my alpha. I belong with this human alpha.
And he had like a crush on him.
He did.
Yeah.
I think anybody would crush on their alpha, though. Don't you think? A little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And then when Joe came back, when he finally returned, I was like, is this going to be some sort of like a situation here? Like a, what do they call it? Like a love triangle?
They handled it like adults, though. They really
it was
did.
Good. I'm glad they didn't go into that.
Yeah.
Into that realm.
Yeah, they didn't have to have a battle and be all jealous and ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was handled very appropriately.
It was. It was good. What did you think of Gordo?
Gordo was like the substitute father figure, and he was a witch. So it's kind of like that took it to a different realm than we really understood, because there were no other witches in this, but like a witch,
not a wizard. He insisted he was a witch.
A witch would strengthen a wolf pack if they had like an affiliation with them. So that was very interesting.
His tattoos would move on his body when he was being powerful.
Yes, that's like Maui in Moana. His tattoos would move. But sorry, I digress. Disney. But yeah, what did you think of him?
I really liked him. I loved that Ox was his tether.
Yes.
That was so cool. He like grounded him and kept him, you know, okay. I really want more, and I guess we'll get more, because I think the second book is about them. Gordo and Mark, is it? Mark is the other
He's in the
wolf in the pack. Isn't it someone's
Joe's brother?
Is his brother or his uncle? It's his uncle.
Is it I don't remember.
Yeah, it's his
uncle. Not important.
Well, I'm trying to figure out the relationships.
Might have been his uncle.
Yeah, so they had like a little bit of a romantic relationship as well, but we don't really know exactly
It was
what
in
happened.
the past. It like broke up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna have a book about them. I'm looking forward to that.
There's more books, guys. I can't wait to read more.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. So
We should talk about the sex too, right?
there's some sex in here.
There's some serious sex in here.
And like the sex in here is it fits. Like it's meaningful. Like it's not just
It's not
thrown in for
trashy.
shock. It's not
No.
trashy. Like it actually has a place in this book.
Right. And it's not abundant. There's really just 2 sections in the book where there's significant sex scenes. And it's like, but it's emotional. Like you feel like it has to be there. You know, like
Yeah.
when I was reading it, Joe wasn't reading it yet, and I texted him, I'm like, I need these guys to have sex. Like it has to happen. Because the book was headed that direction. And the bond was so intense. Like I just felt like it wasn't gonna be a complete story without the sex, honestly.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, they're animals. They're wolves. There's like a whole mating process.
Absolutely.
So it all fit together.
Yeah.
And the sex scene lasted for like 10 pages.
Several pages. Yeah.
In the middle of it, I was just like, how much longer does this go? And I'm like, oh my God, it's still here like 6 pages later. I was like, wow. It was quite a scene.
It was. And then the way that the book ended, you didn't have like you wanted like there needed to be a follow-up sex scene, you know, and it didn't happen before the end, but there was an epilogue which did give you that final sex scene.
Yeah.
And I was saying to Joe before we started filming, I'm like, I wanted in that final scene for Ox, the human, to end up in this sexual mating situation with Joe, to be like, I wanted him to be recognized as the alpha, because he was my alpha. Ox was my alpha through the whole book, because you spent so much time with him. He was this human establishing his pack, and everybody's saying pack, pack, pack in their heads. And like I'm hearing pack, 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 like this different way of communicating. He was my alpha. So at the end, like when they really had sex at the very end, I was like, alpha needs to happen here right now, and it needs to be Ox. But you got the opposite, which was fine. I mean, the whole time they were saying they were going to be like evenly balanced, and they're both going to be alphas. But I was like, I want Ox to be my alpha. Yeah, it was good.
And the major, we didn't talk about the major like spoilery event.
What was the major spoiler event?
When the villain showed up again,
Yes.
yet again, trying to ruin all their lives, took people in the town hostage,
Mm-hmm.
made Ox, come out
Another
and
big battle.
as the bait, and it looked like it was going to be in their favor, but then at the last minute, like one of those horror movies where Freddy Krueger comes back up after he's been beheaded, he did the same thing and came and ripped out Ox's insides, pretty much.
And you're like, no, he can't die.
That was so emotional.
It was a big battle, and it was like, oh,
when
God.
Joe got there, and then Joe was like Joe watched that happen.
Yeah. And all the trauma that Joe's been through, he can't watch Ox die. I mean, no, it's not okay.
So he saved him. And how did he save him, you ask? I guess the obvious.
He turned him to
He bit
a
him.
wolf.
Turned him. He was dying. You had to.
And that was okay, because there was nothing wrong with being a wolf.
That's right. So then that last sex scene was all wolfy.
All wolf.
All wolfy. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have been loving TJ Klune, really, really loving him.
I just can't get enough.
Glad that we found him. We found him because the cover of Cerulean Sea was pretty, and it caught our eye. And like, we're all about covers. We're totally drawn to them, and that has led us on our path of needing more TJ Klune.
Yeah. So we have 2 outstanding series now. We got to finish The Extraordinaries and this. There's 3 more in here. Extraordinaries, I think it's a trilogy. So we got to get on that.
We do. It's gonna be some good reading. So have you guys read TJ Klune? Have you read anything other than The House in the Cerulean Sea? I feel like that's the popular one that everybody is becoming aware of. But he initially was an indie author, so there's a lot of stuff that maybe people haven't read as much. So I'm curious, have you read anything else? Are you going to read anything else of his? What do you think?
And if you're enjoying Book Buds, give us a thumbs up.
And share us with your friends.
And subscribe to our channel, Book Buds!
Epic and awesome!
Yeah.
I read this book too. It was stupendous.
Okay. It's you!
What's me? So small, I couldn't even fucking
Such hard
see it.
lines.
I'm dumb as an ox. What do you want?
Why do you smell like that? Where did you come from? Do you live in the woods? What are you? We just got here. Finally. Where's your house? Lower forehead. and I'm going to breathe deeply. I'm I'm trying to breathe deeply. I don't get it. What is it? And then I have to touch sniffle slime all over you. We have to go see Mom and Dad. They'll know what this is. They know everything. Maybe you should say, what do you smell?
What do you smell?
Pine cones and candy canes and epic and awesome. It's like, get her off me. This is wrong.
That's how much socks I felt.